At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister grinned and announced, "Mom and Dad said I can move into your new apartment next week." I took a slow sip of water and replied, "Oh, how thoughtful of you to give me advance notice. You should plan to arrive on Wednesday." When she showed up Wednesday afternoon, that grin vanished instantly. But let me rewind and explain how we reached this point. My name is Rebecca, and I'm 29 years old. I've been working since I was 16, starting with weekend shifts at a supermarket in Phoenix while finishing high school. After graduation, I enrolled in community college and worked full-time at a hotel front desk. The hours were exhausting, especially the overnight shifts, but I desperately needed the income. My parents never offered financial help with tuition or living expenses. They made it abundantly clear from the beginning that I was expected to support myself financially. My younger sister, Michelle, lived an entirely different existence. She was 25 and had never maintained employment for longer than 3 months. Our parents funded everything: her car, her phone bill, her credit cards, her shopping sprees. When she dropped out of college after a single semester because she found the coursework too overwhelming, they didn't even suggest she find employment. They simply continued financing her lifestyle while she relaxed at their house, posting photos on Instagram and complaining about how dull Phoenix was. I moved out of my parents' house at 19. I rented a cramped studio apartment that smelled faintly of mold and had heating that rattled all night, but it belonged to me. I climbed the ranks at the hotel, eventually becoming an assistant manager. I saved every dollar possible, sometimes skipping meals to increase my savings. By 24, I had accumulated enough for a down payment on a modest house in a respectable neighborhood. My parents didn't attend the closing. My mother claimed they had prior commitments. Michelle didn't even acknowledge my text about it. 3 years later, I purchased a second property, a 2-bedroom apartment in a recently renovated building in downtown Phoenix. It was a strategic investment. The rental market in Phoenix was robust, and I knew I could secure reliable tenants and consistent income. I planned to use the rental revenue to accelerate my mortgage payments and build greater equity. I closed on the apartment in early November. I felt genuinely proud of myself. At 29, I owned 2 properties with reasonable mortgages and a solid financial strategy. I had worked tirelessly for everything I possessed, and it felt rewarding to witness the results of those years of sacrifice. I casually mentioned the apartment to my parents during a phone conversation about Thanksgiving dinner arrangements. I didn't think much of it. I simply mentioned I had closed on an investment property and was excited about the rental income potential. My mother responded, "Oh, that's nice, sweetheart," and immediately changed the subject to what dishes everyone should contribute to Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving Eve arrived, and I drove to my parents' house with a bottle of wine and a homemade pumpkin pie. The house appeared unchanged, the same decorations they'd displayed for 2 decades, the same artificial tree in the living room corner, the same aroma of turkey roasting in the oven. Michelle was already there, sprawled on the couch with her phone, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She barely glanced up when I entered. "Hey," I said. "Hey," she mumbled, eyes glued to her screen. My father was in the kitchen carving the turkey. My mother was arranging the table settings. Everything seemed ordinary. We sat down to eat around 6 in the evening, passing dishes and exchanging small talk about the weather and the neighbors. Then, midway through dinner, Michelle looked up from her plate and smiled at me. It was a bright, enthusiastic smile, the kind I hadn't seen on her face in years. "So, Rebecca," she said cheerfully, "Mom and Dad said I can move into your new apartment next week." I stopped chewing. I set down my fork and looked at her, then at my parents. My mother was concentrating on her green beans. My father was cutting another slice of turkey. "Excuse me?" I said. "Your apartment downtown," Michelle continued, still beaming. "Mom and Dad told me I could move in. I'm so pumped. I've been desperate to escape this house and live somewhere more exciting. Downtown is absolutely perfect. I looked at my parents again. My mother finally met my eyes, her expression completely casual, as if we were discussing tomorrow's weather. "Well, you have that extra property now," my mother said. "And Michelle needs a place to live. It just makes sense." "It makes sense," I repeated slowly. "Yes," my father said, not looking up from his plate. "You're doing well financially, Rebecca. You can afford to help your sister." I took a sip of water, letting the liquid rest in my mouth momentarily before swallowing. My mind raced, but I maintained a neutral expression. Years of hospitality work had trained me to conceal my emotions when necessary. "Oh," I said lightly. "Thanks for the advance notice." Michelle's smile broadened. "I know, right? I didn't want to burden you with all the logistics. Mom and Dad said they'd coordinate everything." "You should move in on Wednesday," I said, taking another sip of water. "Perfect," Michelle said. "I've already started packing." My mother looked relieved. My father nodded approvingly. Michelle returned to her phone, probably already texting friends about her exciting new downtown apartment. I finished my dinner, in silence, responded when addressed, and departed around 9 with a polite smile and a brief wave. The drive home took 25 minutes. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles pale in the glow of streetlights. I was furious, but I was also strategizing. I had learned long ago that anger without planning was pointless. When I arrived home, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee. It was nearly 10 at night, but I was completely alert. I opened my email and began drafting a rental listing for the apartment. I had originally intended to wait until after the holidays to find tenants, perhaps take several weeks to furnish the place perfectly. But circumstances change. I composed a detailed description of the property: 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, updated kitchen with stainless steel appliances, in-unit washer and dryer, balcony with a downtown view, walking distance to restaurants and entertainment. I listed the monthly rent at a competitive rate, knowing it would generate interest quickly. Then I photographed the space. I drove back downtown that night and spent 2 hours capturing every angle of the apartment. The vacant rooms actually looked better in photographs than I'd anticipated. The hardwood floors gleamed under the lights, and the expansive windows made the space feel open and airy. By midnight, the listing was live on 3 different rental platforms. I configured my phone to alert me of any inquiries and finally went to bed. I woke up the next morning to 17 messages. Apparently, affordable 2-bedroom apartments in downtown Phoenix were in tremendous demand. I spent Thanksgiving Day responding to inquiries, scheduling viewings, and conducting background checks. By November 24th, I had 3 exceptional candidates, all with stable employment, excellent credit, and outstanding references. I scheduled in-person tours for the 26th. The first candidate was a young woman named Ashley, who worked as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center. She was professional, courteous, and immediately fell in love with the apartment. She asked insightful questions about the building amenities and the neighborhood. She had a stable income and 4 years at her current position. The second candidate was a couple, both teachers at a local elementary school. They were warm and excited, discussing how the location would reduce their commute time significantly. They had been renting in the suburbs and were thrilled about downtown living. The third candidate was a graduate student who worked part-time at a research laboratory. He was reserved, but appeared responsible. His references were exceptional, and his previous landlord reported he had never missed a rent payment. I appreciated all 3 candidates, but Ashley stood out. She possessed everything I sought in a tenant: stable income, clean background, excellent references, and genuine appreciation for the property. I called her that evening and offered her the lease. "Really?" she said, her voice bright with excitement. "That's incredible. Thank you so much." "Can you sign the lease and move in next week?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "I can sign tomorrow if that works." "Perfect," I said. "Let's meet at the apartment on Friday at noon." "I'll be there," Ashley confirmed. We met on Friday, November 29th. Ashley brought a cashier's check for the first month's rent, last month's rent, and the security deposit. We sat at the kitchen counter and reviewed the lease page by page. She read every section carefully, asked several clarifying questions, and signed. "When can I move in?" she asked. "Whenever you'd like," I said. "You officially have the keys now." Ashley beamed. "I'm thinking Wednesday. I have the week off work, so the timing is perfect." "Wednesday works great," I said, handing her the keys. We shook hands and she left with a spring in her step, already texting someone about her new place. I sat in the empty apartment for several minutes after she departed, feeling profound satisfaction. The property was rented. I had a signed lease, payment in full, and a responsible tenant who would care for the place. Everything was handled professionally and legally. I locked up and drove home, already planning how I would spend Wednesday afternoon. Over the weekend, I maintained my normal routine. I worked my hotel shifts, ran errands, went to the gym. I didn't contact my parents or Michelle. They didn't contact me either, which was typical. We weren't a close family. We rarely communicated outside of obligatory holiday gatherings. On Monday night, I received a text from Michelle. "Still good for tomorrow?" "Moving in around 2 p.m. I smiled and typed back, "Yes, see you then." She sent back a string of excited emojis. I went to bed early that night, setting my alarm for 7 in the morning. Wednesday was going to be significant, and I wanted to be well rested. I woke up feeling calm and focused. I prepared myself a proper breakfast, something I rarely had time for on workdays. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and coffee. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. Around noon, I texted Ashley, "Hey, just checking in. Are you moving in today?" She responded immediately, "Yes. The movers are loading the truck now. Should be there by 1 p.m. "Perfect," I replied. "Let me know if you need anything." "Will do. Thanks again for everything." I spent the next hour cleaning my own house, doing laundry, and keeping myself occupied. At 1:30, Ashley texted me a photo of her new living room with boxes stacked against the wall. "Made it. This place is even better than I remembered." I smiled and sent back a thumbs-up emoji. At 1:45, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Rebecca," she said, her voice tense. "Where are you?" "At home," I said. "Why?" "Michelle is at the apartment," my mother said. "There are people there, people moving furniture in." "Oh," I said, keeping my voice light. "Yes, those are my tenants. They moved in today." There was prolonged silence on the other end. "Your tenants?" my mother repeated. "Yes," I said. "I rented the apartment out last week. I thought I mentioned that." "You most certainly did not mention that," my mother said, her voice escalating. "Michelle is standing outside with all her belongings. She's humiliated." "I'm sorry she's upset," I said. "But the apartment is rented now. I have a signed lease and everything." "Rebecca, this is unacceptable," my mother said. "You knew she was moving in today." "Actually, I didn't know," I said calmly. "No one asked me. You all just decided among yourselves that Michelle would live in my property without ever consulting me. I own that apartment. I paid for it with my own money, and I decided to rent it out." My mother sputtered, searching for words. I could hear my father's voice in the background asking what was happening. I could also hear Michelle crying, her voice high-pitched and dramatic. "This is your sister," my mother finally said. "How could you do this to her?" "Do what?" I asked. "Rent out my own property? Use my investment to generate income as I planned?" "You're being selfish," my mother snapped. "You have plenty of space. You have an entire house. You could have let her stay there for free." "I could have," I said. "It wasn't a question." "She's family," my mother said, as if that explained everything. "So am I," I replied. "But that didn't stop you from expecting me to hand over my property without even asking me first." "We told you at Thanksgiving dinner," my mother protested. "You informed me of a decision you had already made," I corrected. "That's not the same as asking." My father took the phone. His voice was stern, the same tone he used when I was a child and had done something he disapproved of. Rebecca, you need to fix this, he said. Your sister is standing on the sidewalk crying. The neighbors are watching. This is embarrassing for all of us. I'm sorry she's embarrassed, I said, but I can't fix this. I have a legal lease agreement with a tenant who has already moved in. The apartment is occupied. Break the lease, my father demanded. I can't do that, I said, and I wouldn't even if I could. This is my property and my decision. After everything we've done for you, my father said, his voice dripping with disappointment. I almost laughed. Everything you've done for me? Like what exactly? We raised you, he said. You were legally obligated to do that, I said. I've been financially independent since I was 19. I paid for my own education, my own car, my own housing. You've never given me a single dollar of support since I moved out. Meanwhile, you've funded Michelle's entire adult life. So don't talk to me about what you've done for me. Silence. I could hear my mother crying now, too. Michelle was still wailing in the background. You're being cruel, my father said quietly. No, I said. I'm being fair. I worked hard for what I have. I sacrificed and saved for years to build financial security. Michelle has never worked for anything in her life, and you enabled that. You made her believe she could just take whatever she wanted without asking, without earning it, without even considering that other people have rights and boundaries. She's your sister, my father repeated, as if saying it enough times would change my mind. And I'm your daughter, I said. But you never treated me like Michelle was treated. You never paid my bills or bought me cars or let me live rent-free. You expected me to handle everything on my own, so I did. And now I'm handling my own property the way I see fit. My father was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Your mother and I are very disappointed in you. I can live with that, I said. Goodbye. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline coursing through my body. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and took a deep breath. I had just drawn a line in the sand with my family, and there was no going back. But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. My phone buzzed with text messages, first from my mother, then from Michelle, then from my mother again. I didn't read them. I silenced my phone and put it in a drawer. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back porch, looking out at my small but well-maintained yard. I had planted flowers along the fence line last spring, and they were still blooming despite the November chill. I had painted the porch myself, choosing a soft blue that complemented the house's exterior. Every part of this place reflected my hard work and my choices. The apartment downtown was the same. I had chosen it carefully, negotiated a fair price, secured financing, and closed the deal entirely on my own. It was mine. Not my parents', not Michelle's, mine. And I had every right to decide what to do with it. I sipped my wine slowly, feeling the tension in my shoulders gradually ease. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful. Around 6 in the evening, I retrieved my phone from the drawer and checked the messages. There were 12 texts total. Most were variations of, "How could you do this?" and "You're tearing this family apart," and "Michelle is devastated." There was one text from Michelle that stood out. I had to go back to Mom and Dad's house. Everyone saw me get turned away. I'm so humiliated. How could you? I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. There was also a voicemail from my mother. I listened to it. Rebecca, this is your mother. I don't know what has gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Your sister needed that apartment. She had plans. She told all her friends she was moving downtown. Now she has to tell them she's still living at home. You've humiliated her. You've humiliated all of us. I hope you're satisfied. The voicemail ended with a click. I saved it, just in case I ever needed documentation of their behavior, then put my phone back in the drawer. I made myself dinner, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, and a side salad. I ate at my kitchen table, alone but not lonely. I had learned long ago that being alone was better than being surrounded by people who didn't respect me. After dinner, I washed the dishes, changed into comfortable clothes, and settled onto my couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. For the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. My property was rented to an excellent tenant. My finances were solid. My boundaries were clear. And my family finally understood that I wasn't a doormat they could walk all over whenever they wanted something. The next morning, I discovered that my parents and Michelle had blocked me on social media. I noticed this when I tried to look at a photo my mother had posted from Thanksgiving dinner, wanting to see if there were any telling details I had missed about their plan. Instead, I found blank profiles and error messages. It was almost amusing. They had decided that cutting me off digitally was some kind of punishment, as if I had been desperately clinging to their online presence. In reality, I checked their pages maybe once every few months, usually out of boredom rather than genuine interest. I went to work that day feeling lighter than I had in years. My manager noticed the change in my mood and commented during our morning meeting. "You seem happy today," she said. "Good holiday?" "Very productive," I replied with a smile. The hotel was busy with holiday travelers, and I threw myself into work. I assisted guests with reservations, solved problems, coordinated with housekeeping, and handled a minor crisis when one of the elevators malfunctioned. By the end of my shift, I was tired but satisfied. When I arrived home that evening, there was a card taped to my front door. I recognized my mother's handwriting on the envelope. I pulled it down and went inside, tossing my keys on the counter before opening it. The card had a generic image of flowers on the front. Inside, my mother had written a lengthy message in her neat, precise script. "Rebecca, your father and I have been talking, and we think you need to reconsider your actions. Family is the most important thing in life, and you've hurt Michelle deeply. She's been crying for 2 days straight. She barely eats. She won't leave her room. You did this to her. We raised you to be kind and generous, but you've become selfish and cold. We're giving you 1 week to reconsider. If you terminate the lease with your tenant and give Michelle the apartment like we agreed, we can move past this. If not, you need to understand there will be consequences. We won't be able to have a relationship with someone who treats family this way. The choice is yours." I read the card 3 times, each time feeling a different emotion, first disbelief, then anger, then something close to relief. They were giving me an ultimatum. They actually believed that threatening to cut me off would make me cave to their demands. They thought I needed them more than I needed my own self-respect. I walked to my kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept matches, and took the card outside to my back porch. I held it over my small fire pit and lit one corner, watching as the flames consumed my mother's careful handwriting. The paper curled and blackened, and within seconds it was nothing but ash. I didn't respond to the card. I didn't call or text. I simply continued with my life as if nothing had happened. 3 days later, my aunt called me. She was my mother's younger sister, and we had never been particularly close. She lived 3 hours away and usually only appeared at major holidays. "Rebecca," she said when I answered, "I heard about what happened with Michelle. Did you?" I said flatly. "Your mother is very upset," my aunt continued. "She called me crying yesterday. She said you refused to let Michelle live in your apartment." "My apartment," I corrected. "And I didn't refuse. I was never asked. They decided among themselves that Michelle would move in without consulting me. By the time they bothered to inform me, I had already rented it to a paying tenant." "Still," my aunt said, "Michelle is family. Couldn't you have made an exception?" "Why?" I asked. "Why should I make an exception for someone who has never worked for anything, who has never shown me any respect or consideration, who has never even thanked me for a single thing?" "Because she's your sister," my aunt said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. "That's not a good enough reason," I said. "Being related to someone doesn't give them automatic rights to your property or your resources." My aunt sighed. "You know, Rebecca, not everything is about money and property. Sometimes family is more important than being right." "I agree," I said. "Family should be important, but family also means respecting boundaries and treating each other fairly. My parents have never done that. They've always favored Michelle. Always expected me to be the responsible one while she got to do whatever she wanted." I'm done accepting that dynamic. So you're just going to cut them off? My aunt asked. They're the ones threatening to cut me off, I pointed out. They sent me a card saying they can't have a relationship with me unless I do what they want. That's manipulation, not love. My aunt was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think you're making a mistake. Family is forever. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but I doubt it. After I hung up, I realized my hands were trembling again, not from fear or uncertainty, but from the sheer exhaustion of having to explain myself repeatedly to people who had already decided I was wrong. I checked my phone and saw that Ashley had texted me a photo of her fully furnished living room. The apartment looked beautiful. She had added plants, artwork, and cozy touches that made the space feel like a real home. Loving this place. Thank you again for being such a great landlord. I smiled and texted back. So glad you're settling in well. Let me know if you need anything. That evening, I decided to treat myself. I had been working hard and dealing with family drama for days. I deserved something nice. I drove to my favorite restaurant downtown, a small Italian place that made incredible pasta. I ordered a glass of red wine and their special, a mushroom risotto that was perfectly creamy and flavorful. I ate slowly, savoring each bite and watching the other diners around me. There were couples on dates, families with young children, groups of friends celebrating something. Everyone seemed happy and relaxed. It was a nice reminder that life existed outside of my family's dysfunction. As I finished my meal, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. This is Michelle. Mom gave me your number since you blocked us. I just want you to know that you ruined my life. I had everything planned. I was going to start fresh downtown, maybe get a job at one of the boutiques, meet new people. Now I'm stuck at home with Mom and Dad treating me like a failure. Everyone knows what happened. My friends keep asking me why I'm not downtown yet. I don't know what to tell them. You did this. You could have helped me, but you chose to be selfish instead. I hope you're happy. I read the message twice, then blocked the number. I paid my check, left a generous tip, and walked back to my car. The night air was cool and crisp, and the downtown lights sparkled against the dark sky. I felt calm and clear-headed. Michelle wanted me to feel guilty. My parents wanted me to feel guilty. My aunt wanted me to feel guilty. But I didn't. I felt free. The week my parents had given me to reconsider passed without any communication from me. I went to work, paid my bills, checked in with Ashley to ensure everything was going well with the apartment, and lived my life exactly as I wanted to. On the 8th day, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was my father. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, I said. Rebecca, my father said. His voice was cold and formal. Your week is up. Have you reconsidered? No, I said simply. Then this is goodbye, my father said. Your mother and I can't have a relationship with someone who treats family the way you've treated Michelle. You've made your choice and we've made ours. Okay, I said. There was a pause. I think he expected me to beg or cry or try to change his mind. When I said nothing else, he continued. We won't be inviting you to family events anymore. Birthdays, holidays, nothing. As far as we're concerned, you're no longer part of this family. I understand, I said calmly. You understand? My father repeated, his voice rising slightly. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? I asked. You've given me an ultimatum. I'm not going to break a legal lease and evict an excellent tenant just to appease you. So if that means you don't want a relationship with me, then that's your decision. It's your decision, my father said. You're choosing property over family. No, I said. I'm choosing self-respect over manipulation. There's a difference. My father made a sound of disgust. I don't even know who you are anymore. Yes, you do, I said. I'm the same person I've always been. I work hard. I take care of myself. And I don't let people take advantage of me. The only thing that's changed is that I'm no longer pretending to be okay with how you treat me. We've always treated you fairly, my father said. That's not true, and you know it, I replied. But it doesn't matter anymore. If you want to cut me out of your life because I wouldn't give Michelle free housing, then do it. I'll be fine. My father hung up without saying goodbye. I sat on the edge of my bed for several minutes, phone still in my hand. I waited for the sadness or regret to hit me, but it never came. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful. The decision had been made. There was no more uncertainty, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was done. I got ready for work and went about my day as usual. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone to talk about it. I just accepted it and moved forward. Over the following weeks, I discovered just how little my family had actually been involved in my life. I didn't miss the awkward phone calls where my mother complained about everything and barely asked how I was doing. I didn't miss the guilt trips or the constant comparisons to Michelle. I didn't miss feeling like I was never good enough no matter what I accomplished. What I did notice was how much more energy I had without the constant drain of family drama. I felt lighter. I started going to the gym more regularly. I took a weekend trip to Sedona just because I felt like it. I read books, tried new recipes, and reconnected with old friends who actually appreciated me. Ashley turned out to be an ideal tenant. She paid rent on time every month, kept the place immaculate, and occasionally sent me photos of small improvements she had made with my permission. She had painted one of the bedrooms a soft gray and added floating shelves. It looked professional and beautiful. In February, she texted me about a small leak under the kitchen sink. I called a plumber immediately and had it fixed within 24 hours. Ashley was impressed by how quickly I responded. "You're seriously the best landlord I've ever had," she texted. "Most people would have taken days to deal with this." "I take care of my properties," I replied. "And good tenants like you deserve responsive service." It felt good to be appreciated. It felt good to have a professional relationship built on mutual respect rather than one-sided expectations. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Michelle was still living with my parents and still unemployed. My aunt let it slip during a chance encounter at the grocery store in late February. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, as if she wasn't sure whether she should acknowledge me or pretend we were strangers. "Hello, Rebecca," she finally said. "Hello," I replied politely. "How are you?" she asked, though her tone suggested she didn't really want to know. "I'm doing well," I said. "How are you?" Fine, she said. "I saw your mother last week. She's still very upset about everything." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though I wasn't sorry at all. "Michelle is having a hard time," my aunt continued, apparently unable to help herself. "She hasn't been able to find a job. Your mother thinks the whole situation has affected her confidence." "That's unfortunate," I said neutrally. My aunt looked at me expectantly, as if waiting for me to express guilt or offer to fix the situation. When I said nothing else, she sighed. "Well, I should go," she said. "Take care of yourself, Rebecca." "You too," I said. I watch ye.